Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 5 questions with series. Today, we have Allan Wrobel. He is a consulting software engineer for LexisNexis Risk Solutions. And as usual, as the host, it is me, Flavio Villanustre. And first of all, of course, I want to welcome Allan. Allan, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate having you here today. Allan, for those who don't know him, he's been around for a long time. He's been in technology for over 40 years and has been working with data and even relational databases from back in the mid-'80s. So it's quite a fit. And he's been
mid-'70s actually.
Mid-'70s?
Even
oh my God!
Yeah, even longer.
Even longer. And he's been with us, with LexisNexis Risk Solutions, since 2011, since the inception of our business in the UK. And he got in contact with our HPCC Systems technology, he loved it, and here he is. So, again, welcome to our series, Allan. It is great to have you here. It's really unusual to have someone that has been in technology for so long, that has covered so many different areas. You have more than 40 years of experience then, and I'm sure you have seen an incredible amount of change in the field.
Oh, so, yes. Well,
so
I started off as basically God on Earth, known as a computer operator, and in those days, those big machines, really, everything ran round. We were the spiders at the centres of the web. All the programmers would come down with their batch jobs and beg, plead, give us pints of beer. The scheduling was if it was a high-level scheduler, it was down the pub, really, deciding on who got the job next, kind of thing. So yes, there's been massive changes there. But interestingly, as far as the technology goes, a lot of the fundamentals that we see nowadays on the internet and our modern world, they're already in place. For example, networks were around, they were there, but they were seen as point-to-points. I mean, there'd be exceptions like the US military were considered the big users. You had precursors to SGML and HTML, for example, IBM's generalized markup, that was all in place. You had, even calculators and things like that. I remember discussions about all these silly buttons on calculators and how we'd eventually all get flat screens. And but what was really interesting, I find, looking back, was that the individual components for the explosion that was going to happen were in place, and the genius of it all was the how do you put it, the virtuous positive feedback cycle of all these technologies coming together in a way that just no one imagined all those years ago. I mean, it's given me a job for life and a very interesting job. If I was talking to myself 40 years ago, I'd say, look, stay in this industry because it's so interesting. It's been a roller coaster ride. I mean, you can never rest on your laurels, and which sometimes you get a bit older, you wish you could. But
you are absolutely right, and it's not only on technology where the genius is really in combining these different pieces. Many times you see these little either components or indications of change or anything else, and it is up to those that are really disruptors to take all of those, put them together, and then create something new out of all of those little apparently disconnected pieces, right? But tell me how you got involved with HPCC Systems. How did you know about it, and how did you initially get involved?
Well, I've always been. Always been working with databases, really. In fact, I was in a two-man firm. Me and another guy had our own proprietary database that was really quite advanced, actually. And so eventually that's, it had a certain cycle. It was born, it lived, and it died eventually. So I moved into HPCC and LexisNexis seemed the natural follow-on from that. I'm very pleased to get a job with it. That was interesting because when I first joined, it's quite peculiar. There are two things I noticed. One, in many ways, HPCC was a bit primitive compared to what we were doing. So in the part, I'd been working with free text indexing. We'd had Bloom filters. Bloom filters are coming into HPCC, not a moment too soon, actually. But we had quite complex searches using Thesaurus and things like that, SoundX. And there didn't seem to be much of that in HPCC. But what did impress me was as it were, the vast extent of experience. I mean, it really was just one huge data churning industry that was just completely orders of magnitude beyond my experience. I mean, it's like, you like tinkering. I felt as though I'd been tinkering with my old 1955 Ford Thunderbolt. You like a bit of playing with your old car, and then you suddenly get access to the Ferrari F1 team. You've got full access to all this expertise, and it was really, it's pleasure working with people like John Pritchard and data people working on salt and goodness knows what else, and you learn so much from this rich set of experience and pleasant people as well. Just a nice bunch of people to work with.
That's very good. That's very good.
Yeah.
Allan, so you created this series of YouTube videos with the funny little quirks of ECL, as you call them.
Yeah,
so
that's it. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, and also tell me how you would compare ECL to other languages that you have been exposed to throughout your career.
Yes. There's kind of two. I'd like to answer both at the same time, really. I love ECL. For me, it's got just the right level of abstraction. I find myself thinking about the business problem, not the technology, which is quite a relief sometimes, and that's not true at all in many other languages, C++ and goodness knows what else I've written in the past. So I like that, and I like it so much that it does take time getting your head around it. I'd never experienced a declarative language before, and I know I'm not the only one who had trouble getting your head around it. I mean, once you understand it, it's very easy to use, and you just find yourself code just flows from your fingertips. But it does take time to learn, and I must admit, the error handling's fine. It's the error messages, given you've got a completely different mindset to work with, you really need good feedback of where you're going, off piste, as it were. And really, I find there's a few quirks which I remember falling over and really struggling with, and I thought, well, if I'm struggling with them, I'm sure other people have in the past as well. And I thought, right, let's get it all over and done with. Just watch these YouTube things and videos, and hopefully they'd hit. Oh yes, he's had that problem. Oh yes, that explains it. I mean, for example, in HPCC you've got a concept of a builder window where you've got actions and a file set of attributes, and it's not that clear. Perhaps sometimes, especially when they look the same in the IDE, what the difference is between a builder window and a file of attributes, and you can get yourself.
You are absolutely right. You know what? I've seen people create an attribute and then just waiting there until something happens.
It's great. I mean, I had a lovely little one. I had to. When I first started, I had to output a data set, and I had to put out a delimiter between each record. And, in C+ or C, anything, Perl, it would have taken you 2 minutes to do. And I couldn't really get my head around how to do something as simple as that. And really, when you're working with sets, you need a set of line numbers and a set of data, and you give your odd number delimiters odd number lines, and give your data lines, numbers, and then you sort the two by line number, and you get. But it's thinking in those kind of sets where you have to think differently in the way you would have done working with C. You see, it's a completely different way of approaching problems. I've never found a problem. I mean, HPCC. I've never come across a scenario or problem that I haven't been able to fix, intuitively.
But isn't that transition also true for languages that are declarative like SQL? In many times when you are dealing with data sets in SQL, in relational databases, you get faced with the problem of changing the approach. It is not that iterative, sequential type of approach that you apply in C or Perl or Python. It is understanding the problem and then expressing the solution of the problem as an SQL statement, right? In that sense, it's not that different from ECL, from the standpoint that it's not exactly your procedural language. Yeah, so Allan, since we are in the programming languages discussion,
two requirements, is that you want to be thinking about the problem. You don't want to be having to think about the technology, the business solution, but you also need to be able to get down to the bare metal every so often. I really do need to change that third character on the second record to the letter X or something like that, something stupid, or that date must be incremented by 10 minutes or something like that. And you need to be able to do that as well. And I find ECL gives me that ability. I don't find myself thinking about ECL. I find myself thinking about a business problem, but I know I can do anything I want to in it.
That is very good. So speaking of that, if you were to, probably the ideal of every programmer is one day I'll create my own programming language, and I will make sure that I don't have any of these quirks, any of these things here, right? If you were to create your perfect programming language, what would it look like? It would be closer to C, or closer to ECL, or closer to something else. What do you think you would want to have there?
Well, I think you'll be surprised in my answer, actually, because one of my pet hates, actually, is all these proliferation of languages that have come out. You've got Perl, but then you've got Ruby, then you've got Ruby and Rails, and there doesn't seem to be much justification for this proliferation of languages. And perhaps, there is a case to be made. I know that some physicists are thinking about, there's a native North American language which physicists think they should be using instead of English. I'm not convinced. My perfect programming language really is English. So, think about it. You've got business requirements. Business come up with a possible product, and they write it out. And you've got to write it out in such detail that it can be implemented by tech people such as myself. So they have to basically get their mindset over into the computer programmer's mind, and then that computer programmer has to implement it in a computer. But really, IT people such as myself, we're just a middleman. Really, the business people should be able to draw up a document, a Word document, and it should be precise enough, or if it's not precise enough, the computer should be able to say, here, hold on, paragraph 6 doesn't really marry up with paragraph 13. Are you sure you mean that kind of thing? And I see myself more as a middleman, really, and there's enough subtlety in English and preciseness to perfectly define any business problem you want. And so yes, for me it's English. Also the problem space is too broad for any one language to encompass. You've got like what's perfect anesthesia? Well, you've got local anesthetic, you've got global, you've got regional anesthetic. There isn't such a thing as a perfect anesthetic. So there's no such thing as a perfect language. But the best, I think, ultimately, it's going to come down to English, really. I'm only using English because I'm a native English, French as well. I'm not.
Of course,
or Portuguese or whatever. But you get the idea, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, but one thing that computers need is precision. Sometimes some of those human languages that grew organically lack a little bit of precision. Of course, you can go back and explain yourself, but you wouldn't want your computer to turn out like HAL in 2001, remember?
Well,
Anyway.
that's a separate issue. I mean, as long as it's just taking my Word document and interpreting my Word document, I'm not talking about changing the world, just this particular document that's for business proposal, you know, that's a different kettle of fish. But yeah, it's interesting where it's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to close this conversation, unfortunately we are running out of time. Where do you hope to see HPC Systems in the next 10 years? So if you were to continue to work with technology and continue to drive the future of it, what would you like to see in it that maybe you are missing today or you wanted to use to better support your future problems?
Well, my driving force, I feel that querying is going to always become more complex. Business are going to ask more and more complex questions of this data they've got. They've got all this lovely data mined away in their vaults, you know, petabytes of the stuff. And the questions they're going to be asking are just going to increase in complexity. I think that's going to be a general trend. So you have to kind of, as a technologist, you have to support or try and outthink that scenario through. So anything that, like, we had people on the databases I was working on decades ago, people liked the fact that they could search on milk, but it would actually retrieve documents on brucellosis. So there wasn't a single word milk in the documents, but it could still retrieve brucellosis, documents related to brucellosis, when you searched on milk. And people liked that kind of thing, you know, that impressed people. So however, the technology behind that, so we actually had a thesaurus, but the technology details are not that interesting. But I think that's going to be the trend in the future. And we've got to be up. Anyone who wins that race, basically, that's the race to win.
That is very good. That's quite enlightening. So, Allan, thank you very much for being here today. This has been a great conversation. I think the audience will really enjoy it, and I'll see you around. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ben. I love communicating and any way I can help and forward things. I mean, the problem is shutting me up, really. That's I'm a bit like the donkey in Shrek, really. Keeping me quiet, that's the trick.
Like the donkey in Shrek. That's a good image.
In Shrek. Yeah, that's it. Lovely to chat to you. Cheers.
Lovely to chat to you too. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.